Hello students, this is Veena, Assistant Professor in the Department of English, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today we are going to see usage of reading techniques in different situations. We know that reading is one of the foremost and important skill in the way of your written communication. Once you get expertise over this reading skill and the mastery over this reading skill, you will have lot of vocabulary as well as proper grammar structures to your communication, such that you can build your oral communication as well as your speaking communication. Now, how is that these reading techniques are going to be helpful to you in the way of your communication in different situations? What kind of reading technique has to be adopted? And what is the true entity or the true idea of using that particular technique at that instant of time must be understandable, because you once have to understand the criteria, the rules of each skill, such that you can make the application of them rightly at right place. Knowing oral introduction, knowing oral information about any kind of technique, whether it is listening, reading, speaking, writing, is not enough. It only happens with good practice. So, let us try to understand the usage of these reading techniques in the situations, such that you will have an idea and also you will have that awareness when, where and how to use this reading techniques. Now, let's get started? Yes. Here, what is reading? Before we talk about the reading techniques, it is very essential to understand what is reading. Of course, it is very easy for you all to analyze or define reading. It is the ability to read the language and grasp its meaning. The ability to decode the meaning from the text and understand it. Not only understand it, try to analyze it, interpret it and evaluate it. Of course, so since our childhood, we are go on listening to it. We are trying to understand why this reading is important and how the role of reading skills is being emphasized in the way of making our communication more and more better and also effective. Now, here it allows the reader to convert a written text into a meaningful language. Here, the written text can be in any kind of language. Unless you do not have the awareness about that language, you do not have that scope or the authenticity over that language, you will not be able to decode the meaning from the reader. So, before you start reading, see that the book which you are reading or the language which you are trying to read, do you have the awareness over it? Do you know about that? So, have that at least awareness. Don't just blindly take over a book and try to read it. Reading is different. Understanding, the ability to understand is very important. That is the reason we told it as the method of communication that enables a person to turn writing into meaning. I can scribble anything, but when it can become into meaningful sentence, only when I can read it, only when I can decode it. That is, there is much more written formats or written languages. The only thing what is essential there and the primary element what we have to remember is only that which we can read can render the meaning and also cater the need of providing the information. That one which cannot be read, cannot be understood. Then what is the use of having a book with you which you cannot read? So, reading must be done effectively. Before reading, you must understand that language. You should have awareness over the language and try to make it very effective while using it in different situations. At what point of time, what kind of technique you are using? Are you a slow reader or an active reader or a fast-paced reader? Why? What is the situation demanding? Can you sit for hours and hours and read? Is it okay? Is it applicable? How is that you are going to grasp the information when you have no time? What is the technique which you are going to apply in terms of making your reading meaningful such that you can cater the food to the mind in the way of making your knowledge efficient and accurate? So, all these stuff is revolving around your reading skill. Listening and reading, they are inputs to our communication. Without proper input of these two skills, you will not be able to speak or you will not be able to write. So, always don't run behind speaking and writing as the skills. You should understand the essence and the necessity of these two skills, which are the basic cores of your communication, basic roots of your communication, which will build you or transform your communication in the way of the writing or in the way of the speaking. Now, it allows the reader to read text into meaningful language. So, a written text can become meaningful only when one can read it. When one has the ability to read and understand it, only that ability is called as the reading skill. Now, what are the elements which are integrated in this reading skills? What are the essentials of the reading skills? Try to understand. Now, independence, comprehension, fluency, and to interact with the message. These are the 4 essentials of your reading. Let us try to talk about them one by one. Here, independence. When you have all the freedom to express your thoughts, your feelings, your excitement, your sadness, your moods, then you can put it in the paper, and also you will have the independence of understanding over the text which you are reading. When you are sitting with a book trying to read something, you should have that independence of understanding the text in all the ways of perspectives. It is not that you are going to understand that particular text only from the author's point of view or the writer's point of view. You will have that freedom to understand the text in which you want it to understood. Right? Is it able to cater the need of providing the information which you need? Right? How is that you are going to take up that? How is that you are going to make yourself accessible to the element of the information which you are reading, such that it caters the need of your thesis or your presentation or your research work? So, you must have that independence of thoughts, independence of ideas over whatever you are reading. You must be able to understand, grasp the true notion of that write-up and try to evaluate or try to analyze it. Next, comprehension. Comprehension is nothing but understanding. How well you can understand the language. That is the major perspective which will cater the need of the reading skill. If you are unable to understand the language or the expression of that particular language which is already written, then the use of your reading skill is not at all catering. So, try to have that comprehending skill to acknowledge the importance of the reading. Now, here, when you are taking up a book which is written in language, any language, if you are unable to understand the alphabet or the grammatical structure or the meaning of the words which are in that particular text, then will you be able to comprehend the right meaning? No, you will not be able to comprehend the right meaning. So, for that reason, before you start reading any language, either it can be your English or it can be any kind of your regional language, you must have proper awareness about that language. Then only you can start reading it. First, have acknowledgement over the alphabets, their sounds, their accents, meaning of the words, how the sentences are formulated. All these basic rules are very, very important for you all. You all have to get good grip over all these aspects, such as you can master and comprehend appropriate meaning of these sentences when you read. Next, fluency. Fluency develops gradually with the grip over the sentences and the language. Once you are good at reading, once you are good at comprehending, fluency will automatically generate its way in the process of mending your communication, in the process of mending your reading skill. So, once you have awareness, once you have the independence of thought, once you can comprehend the language, you can have mastery over the fluency. The fluency must be over the accent, the dialect, the way you communicate, the gestures towards the reading entity what you are taking up there. Then, to interact with the message while you are reading, you have to put yourself in that situation. Try to evolve your point of view and interact with that message. How authentic it is being useful to you in the way of generating that meaning in the reading text. So, I try to interact with the message such that there will be many perspectives which will evolve during the course of your reading, and also there will be many questions which will arouse from the reading such that you can gain the answers from then and there itself. The way you communicate, the way you interact with the message will train you to also gain the command over the answers which you will acquire from the questions of the text. Next, reading is a great habit that can change human life significantly. Why? It can entertain us, isn't it? Whenever we are feeling very tired or whenever we are messed up with things, whenever there are things which are becoming clumsier, take a book. Make yourself a space. Sit in a place. Carry that book and try to read it. Depends on your interest. Select a comic. Select a write-up. Select an article. It depends on your own interest. You cannot read something which is not interested. Then only you will gain that good interest over the book. Once you have the interest, if you are having interest over comics, take them. Try to read them. Give space for yourself. Try to entertain yourself. It is not compulsory that someone should come and entertain you. You have the means to entertain you. By reading books, or all your hobbies are meant for that. And reading must be one of your hobby, because it will surely not only enlighten your knowledge but also entertain you in the way of catering so much vocabulary, in the way of fetching the fluency, and also in the way of making you an intellectual. This will help you. Then, amuse us, that is, it also surprises us, enrich us with knowledge and experiences narrated. Books are the very, very important source in catering the knowledge and the experiences. Experiences about the past, experiences about the issues which are related to the present situation. All these things will surely formulate that interest in you and they may create that fascination over the reading skill. So try to utilize your books, try to read them such that not only your ability to will read will become effective, but also you will become an intellectual person. Now, let us try to understand these 7 reading techniques or styles, which, where, how we are going to use them. In what kind of situation we are going to use these 7 reading techniques. Now, what is first one? It is scanning. Next is skimming. Then is active reading. Then detailed reading, speed reading, structure, proportion, evaluation. Next, survey question, read, recite, review. We basically have these 7 techniques which will help us in making the reading style effective. Depends on the situation, time and the purpose of your need of the information. These styles can be applicable. The only work which is assigned to you is you must be able to understand which style is applicable for which situation. When there is no time, you cannot sit, have a lengthy reading, isn't it? You cannot do that. But when you have time, you can do it. In the same way, depends on the situation, depends on the purpose. You can select the reading style and you can go with it to make the use of the information which is in the books. Now, let us try to understand each one of the technique in detail as well as the situation where you can use them. Here, reading technique 1 is scanning. As you all know, scanning is just looking over the pages for a specific word. You are going to scan, isn't it? Now, let us try to understand it with a good definition of it. The scanning through the text is a reading strategy that is used for getting specific points by looking at the whole text. That is, when you want specific information from some particular content, you are going to scan it. Looking over that key points, isn't it? You want information about that specific entity in the content. So, you are going to take up that with the evaluation of the scanning process. That is, you can scan for the specific element, point and try to understand the information what you get it from it. Now, or highlighting the important points of a book, readers can skim through the summary or the preface of the beginning and end chapters of the book. So, you can also use the skimming technique in between, but when it is scanning, you will be looking for specific words, identical, which will fetch or cater the need of your reading process to gain that information what you need to cater the need for that purpose. Now, for example, this technique is used for looking up a name from the telephone guidebook. See, a telephone directory is filled with n number of phone numbers. But when you need somebody's phone number, you will be looking for that specific name and you will pointing out the specific name in that whole directory of thousands of numbers. That is, you are scanning for that specific purpose, a person's number in the telephone directory. So, in this kind of situations, that is, when you want specific information about any key element, you will be scanning the text. You will not overall read. For that purpose, if you go on read all the names of the telephone directory, how much time will it take? Will it serve your purpose? No. You will just look for the alphabet of that name, person's name, and just directly go there and try to sort out the names from that directory and gain the number from it. So you are scanning here. Your scanning technique is used here. Next, skimming. Now what is skimming? Skimming is, it is used for getting the gist of the whole text. Sometimes we don't have much time to read the entire text. So what do we do is, we try to skim over the text. That is, we are looking for some important points such that we can make the gist of that content in the way of making us understand the content which is in that particular aspect. So, you are going to skim over this text. You are not going to read the entire text. You are going to skim through the main points of the text. Through the introduction, some points you will gather, and from the main body, some points you will gather, and from the conclusion, you will gather some points, such that you can make the gist of that particular content in the way of making it possible to understand the text. That is, having a small gist or the summary of the text is your skimming technique. We generally use this technique at the time of a reading newspaper or magazine. Where is that we are going to use the situation? That is, when we are doing newspaper readings or when we are doing reading magazines, we skim the text, isn't it? Do we overall read the text in the magazines? Do we overall read all the lines in the newspaper? How much time will it take if we read each and every line in the newspaper? No, we try to skim over the text in the newspapers and magazines such that we attain the gist of that particular concept and the information. Next, under this technique, we get to know the main points and skip over the details. So, here our focus is on knowing the main points, which are very, very essential in making your reading possible and cater the purpose of that situation. So, you will look for the key points in the skimming. It is, you will try to make the gist, make the note of the gist of the story, story or information or content, whatever is needed through skimming technique. It is useful in getting a preview of a passage. What is this preview of the passage? That is giving us the right meaning, right essence, right introduction of the passage. Before reading it in detail or reviewing understandings of a passage after a reading in detail. Before you go for detailed reading, we will try to do a preview to understand whether it will fetch the need of my information, whether it is purposeful to read this particular information or not. How is that I am going to judge it? The thing is, I am going to skim over the text to see whether the essentialities what I need from the text are available or not. If they are not available, I will just ignore the text and go for the other. If it is really needed, then I will do the detailed reading of it. So, here in that particular concepts and the situation, you will be using your skimming technique. Next, active reading style. This is one of the most effective style which will help you in becoming more intelligible and knowledgeable. Now, how active you are reading with all the interest and concentration to gain the purpose of the knowing that content. Now, active reading aims to get an in-depth understanding of the text. In detail, you are trying to jot down the points. In detail, you are trying to understand the concept. So, here you will take up the active reading style. Under this technique, the reader actively involved with the text while reading it. That means you have all the concentration, all the interest while you are reading the text, and you are not skimming it. You are reading each and every paragraph in detail to attain the depths of that particular content. Getting in-depth knowledge of the text at hand is not possible by reading to skim through or scan through the text. Now, if you really want to know the depth of the content, you have to acquire this active reading style, because skimming or scanning cannot serve your purpose, especially when it comes to your academics. When it comes to your academic textbook, you must utilize this active reading style, because they help you in developing your hard skills. They help you in placing your professional growth. So, when you are doing research, try to do and acquire and adopt active reading style, such that your research will have all those essentialities which are needed to it. If you just skim or scan the text which are relevant to your research and you are not doing in-depth exposure, then your research will be incomplete. Especially those who are doing research works, those who are doing your academical work too. When you are preparing for your exam, try to adopt active reading style. In the last moment, you can skim the gist. If it is tomorrow exam, today you cannot do this because you have a lot of syllabus. So, you can skim them. But here, before preparation, you have to accept and adopt active reading style to make you evolve and to make you intelligent enough in understanding different concepts and the topics. Here, detailed reading. Here, what it is detailed reading? It is somewhere matches with the active reading style. Detailed reading is also with all the details, with all the characteristics, with all the thoughts, emotions and expressions you are trying to understand that particular content. This technique is used for extracting information accurately from the whole text. That means appropriate, qualitative, appropriate and qualitative information. For this kind of information, you will be doing detailed reading. That means such that you cannot miss any point which refers to the information which want you to understood. So, you have to do detailed reading when you should not miss any kind of point from it, and if you want to acquire accurate and qualitative information, you have to take up the detailed reading. Under this technique, we read every word. Each and every word we are going to read for understanding the meaning of the text. In this careful reading, we can skim the text first for getting a general idea and then go back to the read in detail. Now, why we are going to skim before? Because we want to get some gist of that content such that we can equip ourselves and spend more time in detailed reading. So, as a preview, you can skim the text. After skimming the text, you can start doing the detailed reading for better understanding and for catering the needs of the purpose of your information. We can use a dictionary to find the meaning of every unfamiliar word. That is, here it can be applicable for the dictionary. If you are having a word which you do not know the meaning, you can take up the word and you can do detailed study over the different kind of meanings of the word, such that you are not missing and such that you can use that word accurately and authentically wherever it is needed. Next, speed reading. How is that speed reading is done? What is the purpose of this speed reading? It is actually a combination of various reading methods. Here, it may be the combination of skimming and scanning. It may be the combination of active reading and skimming. So, it is the combination of different styles of reading. The aim of speed reading is basically to increase the reading speed without compromising the understanding of the text meaning. Of course, here we are trying to read fastly, but at the same time, our criteria is not to miss the meaning or any important point while doing the speed reading. Generally, we do this before our examinations, isn't it? Before our examinations also, we do speed reading. And our purpose is to attempt and read all those important points while reading at speed. Understood? So, here speed reading is essential to make the time management, to lessen your time, as well as cater all the points which are essential for your reading purpose. Then, some of the strategies used in speed reading are identifying words without focusing on each letter. So, what are the main purpose or the main elements why we do this speed reading? One, it can be we will try to identify words without focusing on the other content. We are reading it with having 2 or 3 important main points in our hands and we are trying to fetch it. So, we are not having any focus on any other words in that particular content and focusing specifically on some points and trying to gain attention over them. Next, not to sounding out of all words. That is, not to sounding out all words. You are not going to read all the words. You will be focusing only on the main points in that sentences. Then, not sub-vocalizing some phrases. That is, you are not sticking yourself to some phrases, trying to understand the entire sentence but doing it quickly. Spending less time and some phrases than others. So, you will not spend much time on some unimportant phrases for that particular time and you will be focusing more time on the phrases which are needed to you to gain the information. Skimming small sections. So, some sessions you will try to skim over to get the gist and your time will be saved. So, this is your speed reading technique. Now comes structure proportion evaluation. This is an interesting technique suggested by Mortimer Adler in his book, How to Read a Book. Remember this. This is one of very, very interesting technique. Let us see how interesting it is and why interesting it is. The reading technique is mainly applicable to non-fiction writing. This technique is mainly applicable only to non-fiction, not to the fiction writing. This technique suggests the reading as per 3 following patterns. In this technique, we are trying to read the text through 3 major patterns. And what are those? Studying the structure of the work. First, your focus will be to study the structure of that particular work. Next, studying the logical proportions made and organized into chains of inference. How is the logical proportions are connected with the content and how they are interconnected, how they are chained with each other in the way of developing the logical sequence in the content and making you understand the meaning. Next, evaluation of merits of the arguments and conclusions. At the end, by the end, in this kind of reading, you will have evaluation of the arguments and the conclusions. So, basically, in this method of structure proportion evaluation, which was suggested by Mortimer Adler in his book, How to Read Book, he has explained us about this technique, and this is mostly referred towards the non-fictitious books. There, first we were trying to understand the structure of the work, then we are trying to understand the logical sequencing and the chain between the ideas and the thoughts and the sentences or the paragraph, and finally how is the evaluation of the conclusions or the arguments is done by the end of the summary of the conclusion. So, Therefore, these three are the important points which are covered under this technique, which will create that relevance and essence of the reading technique possible. Then comes reading technique: survey, question, read, recite, review. All the 5 points: survey, question, read, recite, review. All these 5 points are covered under this text. The method aims to facilitate a clear understanding of the text, that the reader would be able to teach whatever he has learned during the process of reading. This process happens in 5 different steps. How is that we are going to do this reading technique? First we are going to have a survey. What is the survey? We are going to have a quick idea of the whole writing piece. For example, reading the introduction or the summary of the book. Why are we reading introduction or the summary of the book? To have a quick survey over that content. To have a quick information about the content what you are going to read. So this will be your first step, to survey the introduction or the summary. Next, question. We are not just reading the words or looking out the words, but we are actually trying to make out the underlying meaning of the sentences. So here we are trying to prepare questions such that you gain answers from that particular text. That is your second step. So try to formulate questions such that you can explore them and find the answers from the content. Next, read. Then start reading. First you had conducted the survey, then you have formulated some questions on it, then you have started the reading. The reader should read selectively if they are looking for any specific. For example, if you are looking up for some specific information, you can read to look over that selective pieces only. That depends on the way you want the information to be catered to your notes. Then recite. Recite. The reader should answer the questions in his own words using the keywords that are required to sum up the idea. You have already formulated the questions. So, you have to try to recite the answers for the questions you have formulated in the beginning of your source of the content. Next, review. Here, you are going to review the entire things in the mind. The survey, the questioning, the reading and the reciting, as well as the last thing, reviewing. Whether the information what you have read has catered your need. Did it cater the purpose of your serve towards the reading entity of that element at that particular time. So, always remember, try to read effectively. Adopt the style which suits you according to that particular situation and time. Reading is the basic foundation on which academic skills or individuals are built. Your academic skills, your individuality, your personality can be built with the thorough and rigorous reading skill help you in the way of making your communication more better and also effective. Now paramount importance of reading. It is given top priority in primary education. We try to make children recite poems. We try to make them recite rhymes. Why? Because that reading process make them remember the content what they are learning. So, learning process can become effective only with the good reading ability. Then, many believe that reading is a true measure of a person's success in academics. It is rightly true. Then, most of the subjects taught us are based on the simple concept. What is that simple concept? Read, understand, analyze, synthesize and get information. This is the simple concept which we follow in the way of acquiring knowledge. So, first read, understand, analyze, synthesize and gain the information whatever is needed for your skill. Now, if you see here in this picture, the quote by Addison. Reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body. For the mind, the true exercise is reading. With effective reading, your brain grows and develops that intellectual knowledge and also help you in making the awareness and creating the awareness over different perspectives of your professional growth. Now, reading materials are such as books, journals, magazines, etc. are most inexpensive source of knowledge. There are much expensive sources, but reading will fetch you the inexpensive. They are of very less expensive. So you can buy books and read them. Now, reading is the cheapest way of acquiring knowledge and thus improving the lifestyles. Now, what are those 8 benefits which you will fetch with the reading skill? That is giving satisfaction, enhancing concentration. Your concentration levels will be improved with the rigorous and the continued practice of the reading skill. Then imparting knowledge. Not only you gain knowledge, but you will be able to impart knowledge to others also. Then exercise to your brain. Reading is an exercise to your brain. Then reducing stress. It reduces your stress. Enhancing analytical thinking. You will be able to think in different perspectives, able to interpret and analyze the situations around you. Next, improving vocabulary. They add good vocabulary to your language. Then, improving your writing skills. Before improving your writing skills, there are many other advantages, benefits which will surely help you. You all don't know this, but they happen unknowingly. So, try to adopt, try to practice this reading skill such that you can gain good knowledge and intellectual skills to code or crack your professional elements. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.